dear Eva James, thank you very much for being there for this interview for the program Women in Journey at Renault. Maybe for beginning, could you please briefly present yourself and your position at Renault Nissan to explain what you are doing and where you come from? And
my name is Eva James, and I am the leader for ISIT. I'm the VP for ISIT, both Renault and Nissan. And in India, we have a large team of 2,500 IT engineers who support corporate platforms. So we do a lot of breakthrough work in line with Luca's vision of making Renault a deep tech company. So that's what we're doing every single day. And I'm very happy with what I do. I finished 6 years with the family, with Renault, and I'm on my 7th year right now.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So I will start with my questions related to your career path. From your experience, what are the key factors like personal decision, your personal strategy, key moment in your career that explain your professional success? The recipe of success for you?
Two things. One, I always have pursued to do new things every single day. So if I've done something today, then I look for something new tomorrow, even if it's very small, right? So doing the same thing over and over again uh, personally bores me to death. So I challenge myself to do something new. That's my personality, either at home or at work. I like to explore, and that spirit of exploration has helped me to grow in my career in a very interesting fashion. Because the paths that I have taken in my 30 plus years of career is primarily because I wanted to pursue new things. In fact, my first 24 years in the industry have all been with the banking industry. I worked with large banks in the past in the US. And so when I decided to do something different, I said I will get into an industry where I am going to be an absolute fresher. And that is how I joined the auto industry. So there was a huge learning curve. I wanted to learn before I contribute. So irrespective of the fact that I joined as a leader in ISIT, on the business side, I had to learn a lot. So that zeal to learn and the zeal to do different things is not just for me, but I think is a good recipe for everyone who wants to grow in their lives, career or personal lives.
The search for novelty and learning a lot and continuous learning. Okay.
Continuous learning. The other thing, which especially being women in the industry, is people talk about work-life balance, right? But I prefer to call it work-life juggling, because there's never going to be a balance. You cannot say that, okay, I spend 8 hours here and then 8 hours there. That's never going to happen. So I've always made sure that I prioritize, okay, today this is more important than the other one. So the constant juggling between home and work is another thing that you have to master on. There is no book, there is no class that's going to teach you. It's because each one's personal life is very different from the other person. So you need to have a good handle over how you master that. And I think that is something which I've learned, because I've at home, my mother was working in a bank. So I've seen her juggle, and she had 3 daughters, and she made sure that she worked all through her life. So I think that is something which I think is an important element to have a successful career for women, especially, is you need to master the art of juggling home and corporate environments.
Okay, good. Very interesting feedback. I like the notion of juggling instead of balance. Absolutely agree with you. And how did you manage the different stages of your career? What were your strategy to some extent, for instance, to change from banking to automotive? What was the best moment, and how did you manage the different steps of your career?
So in my first job, I spent 13 years. If you're familiar with the Indian context, in India, people move jobs very frequently.
Okay.
They move every 3 4 years, especially if you're a young engineer. 3 years is a big thing, whereas I stayed in my job for 13 years, and I think that's the best thing that I've done so far, because I'm very convinced that because I stayed in one place, I had a lot of depth and the breadth. I worked on diverse projects, but I also got in detail of how to run a business, what are the elements, not just in terms of technology, but to run a business, what are all the other elements. So from a career point of view, I think staying in one organization but doing different things, right? To have the patience to learn. While I wanted to do something new every day, I would also give the right amount of time for me to understand the environment and not do things in a haste. So I think that's a strategy that I always tell people: pursue new dreams, but have the patience and the perseverance to do it well as well, because you need to invest the time and to do it. The other thing is, very early in my career, I did a lot of traveling. I worked in different geographies, and that has also helped me in a big way to have a very diverse view of the world uh, corporate environment. I've lived in the US for a few years. I've lived in Europe for a few years. I've had the opportunity to work in Japan for 2 years. So I think that kind of a global exposure, when I was about 6 7 years of experience, has really helped me to become a leader who understands various cultures. And because you are in a world today where one size fits all does not work. You need to have different hats when you're working with different geographies and different cultures. So I think those are all the people think if you have to be a technologist, you need to know skills like Java and SAP. And but for me, if you have to grow, you need to know much more than technology. You need to know the business, you need to know the culture. So I think investing in all those elements also very early in my career has helped me in a very big way.
Okay, interesting, very interesting. Um, Another question, a little bit more tricky, but the world of industry and automotive is known to be masculine, and maybe banking was the same before, and in its composition, in professional norms. And did this context has been a source of moment of more complex situation to manage to you? And the question is, have you ever been directly confronted with sexist remarks or behavior? And if so, how did you manage this type of situation?
Absolutely. As I said, my first 25 years have been in the banking industry, large Wall Street firms, Citibank, Bank of New York, and everywhere you look around, you're going to be seeing well-suited men. Right? So of course, times are changing. We do see a lot of women there, and so it's a very positive, welcome change. But it is a fact that even in the auto industry, in fact, on a very personal front, when I told my family that I'm going to join Renault, they said, "You know to drive a car, but beyond that, what will you do in Renault?" Right. So that's the connotation, that is the association that they've built with the auto industry and the men folks generally. It's not just that, right? You go to any college in India, the number of women students pursuing mechanical engineering or auto engineering is very, very small. So I think the whole thing starts there, that women in this industry are far and few. On a very personal front, I have been exposed to a lot of these comments, but I've taken them in a stride. I was in the Middle East. I used to work for National Bank, one of the large banks in Abu Dhabi, and they wanted a resident manager to take care of a big implementation, and the specs were very clear. And then my name was suggested for that role, and they wanted someone to fly to take the interview there. And I went there because I carry a name which is not very Indian, right? My name is Eva James. It's not a very Indian name. And so maybe in India, people were just looking at the name, did not realize that it was a lady. So, so when I went there, the person who was to talk to me was very shocked because apparently he was expecting a man. And he said, "This role is for a man." I said, "Where in the JD have you written that you wanted a male candidate?" Because I meet all the requirements, right? So his immediate association was for a bank, for a large implementation in Abu Dhabi, you would only field male candidates. Right? I said there was not an explicit mention of it has to be a male. So I'm here. Let's talk. If it works, it works. Otherwise, I'll fly back. But then it so happened that I had a long 2 hours chat with him, and he liked my value proposition. And I stayed back in that role for 2 years and had a very successful implementation. So the point is, some of these biases are very subtle. They did not, they don't explicitly come out, but in the minds, when they think of a candidate, it is always a male candidate.
Yeah.
So, but again, it all depends on how you face that comment and how you take it. I could have said, okay, I'm sorry, I'm here, and I could have come back. But then I said, let's talk. If you think it's going to work, it's work. Otherwise, I'll anyway have a return flight back home. So I think while I say it very easily, but I think for us, for women, it's better to face it because overnight the world is not going to change. There are going to be these subtle biases. So many times it's very unconscious. No one is asking them to be biased or they don't want to be biased. It is just they're wired to be thinking like that. So I think it's best for women to face it rather than shy away from it. That is what I would say. That's what I tell all the women I work with, right? Don't shy away. You are going to be facing biases. Confront it.
Yeah.
Confront it.
Okay. Don't adopt an attitude like if you don't see that it's reality and you have to manage that and to confront it
Absolutely.
and exchange. And is it still the case currently? You have a huge a position at Renault. Do you have still this type of comment, or it has changed with your position?
See, people think that having a diversity and inclusion council or a D&I head will solve all these problems. But I strongly believe that having the diversity as your KPI is more a metrics. It'll report some numbers. You have 33% gender diversity, but being an inclusive organization is beyond numbers. It's a mindset, and that does not happen because you have a D&I head on the organization, right? It happens when the people at the top start paying a lot of attention to it, uh, talk about it at every given opportunity, spot the right talent, give them the opportunities. So, in fact, very recently, Renault reinstituted the Women at Renault Group board. And they said that they want to look at multiple things: pay parity, women in leadership roles, not just at the top, because the problem is at the middle, right? Because we don't have enough at the middle, they don't reach the top. We have a lot of people at the entry level, but then the crack is right at the middle. So how do we fix that at the middle so that there's a healthy pipeline that moves to the top? So for me, yes, we continue to have these struggles. Many times, as I said, it is not a conscious bias, it is an unconscious, because we are all human. And it depends from region to region. The kind of biases that I experience or I witness in India is very different from what you would see in the West. But I think we are very far away from saying that it is all history. I would rather say that uh, groom the men and women today to face it. And I'm sure even if you're going to be, the two of us are going to be talking 2 decades from now, this is going to be there.
Okay, yeah,
It's not.
yeah, I understand your point. It's something that we have to daily manage and not avoid. I have another questions regarding the notion of networking. As the networking being an important factor in your career, And how do you manage this aspect? And I will add the same question regarding the notion of mentoring. I don't know if you have done something like that, but the networking and the mentoring and all these two dimensions have been important in your professional life.
Absolutely. I would give it my 100% because today I personally believe that the opportunities that I have taken, the roles that I've played have all been the results of the right level of networking that I've had and the mentoring. I could have done better for sure, no doubt about it. But I'm very conscious about that. I don't lose an opportunity to network and mentor. And networking, sometimes people think is very hierarchical, right? You network with your boss's boss. But I think networking has to be a lot more horizontal. That you work with your peer groups in HR, in purchasing, in logistics, inside the organization. But very important that you network with the industry and your friends from the industry as well, because uh, it's so important the pace at which the world is changing, the industries are changing. You need to know what's happening around. You need to have the right level of so personally uh, I invest a lot of time personally on that. And again, on that's on the networking part. On the mentoring part, sometimes mentoring can be a very structured program, but for me, mentoring need not be very structured, right? Because if I know that I look up to you, for example, then it's up to me to reach out to you every now and then, because we might not be part of a structured or a defined mentoring program. But I have had people whom I look up to as role models, and I always bounce back to them. Some of them are inside Renault, some of them are outside Renault in my earlier organizations. But anything that I'm doing, I would just have a casual chat with them. I will talk to them. I would get their views. Uh, Believe me, that has really helped me get diverse perspectives of people, has helped me change for the better, has helped me identify some of my strengths and weaknesses, and also given me platforms that I can't even imagine that just because you are skilled, you don't get those opportunities and platforms. You need to have the right level of networking and sponsorship. And all of this can happen only when we make an effort, because a lot of times today I see young people waiting for mentor programs. But I think it is on us to go and look for those kind of mentors. For me, some of the mentors have been lifelong mentors. I think even when I'm 15 years older from now, I will still go back to some of them. So mentoring need not be a time bound program. I'm going to be mentored for this 1 year, because we are growing every day. So we need to have, yes, corporates identify such programs, but beyond that, everyone who wants to pursue an interesting career should look for their own mentors and sponsors in their career time. It's very important.
Is it your case? Do you have someone that who plays the role of mentor, and when you have to do a choice regarding your career, you contact this person and say, "Okay, I need help."
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
So even when I joined Renault, I had two options. As I said, I wanted to get out of the banking industry because I worked for a very long time. So I had to choose between auto and retail.
Okay.
And so I had to go back to talk to, as I said, I had a few mentors, and I talked to all of them. I said, this is where I am. I'm in a state of, I have to make a choice, but help me make an informed choice. I don't leave the choice to them, but I help them. I take their help to make my choices, right? And it works, because the people whom I look up to are very, very they know much more than what I know. They are very industry, they are much senior in the industry. At the same time, mentoring need not be only with people who have the right level of who are senior to you, as I said, right? Sometimes, especially in the world that we are in with the Gen Zs and the modern younger generation, in my team of 2,500 people, some of these young kids, the ones who have passed out of the college in the last 2, 3 years, the kind of ideas that they bring to the table. So some of the times when I need some ideas, I gather a bunch of people, sit to them and talk to them. So for me, I look at it as a reverse learning. I sit with them and I learn. So mentoring is not about hierarchy. Mentoring does not need to be with a person, someone above. You can harness the strength of anyone.
Yeah, interesting.
So
And do you play the role of mentor for people, other women?
yes, so uh, as I said, I find myself lucky to have had the right level of sponsorship and mentoring. So I don't. I never miss an opportunity to help others. There are a lot of people both inside Renault and outside Renault whom I work with. They come to me. I voluntarily go and help them. Not just women, but a lot of men as well.
Yeah, great, great. And you can see the evolution and the progress to these people.
Yes,
So it's great.
very, very heartening because I think seeing others grow around you it smells sweet. I love that.
Okay. Um, uh, all, as you're making your work, skill, success visible, um, is it an issue? How do you put your work and your success in the front? And the idea is, how do you manage your visibility? Because studies on women show that women are not naturally inclined to promote their success and their skills. And I would like to know, how do you manage your visibility? Is it something important for you? And how you do something with that?
So this this is not just for women, right? I think for both for men and for women, being very skilled and knowledgeable is one. But then how do you make yourself visible with all of this stuff? Because each one of us have a role to play in the organization and we can do the best that we can in that role, right? But if you have to grow, then you have to make yourself visible beyond that portfolio of yours, right? So personally, I am someone who'd put my hand up for everything, even if I'm partly ready. So it has worked both ways. Sometimes I've been overly enthusiastic about it and I've taken too much more than what I can chew. But that's my general personality that I look for areas where I can contribute and I would raise my hand up. So that way, that has helped me connect with groups and teams outside of my regular area of work, right? And that is the only way to become visible in large organizations like Renault, because Renault is multicultural, multi-geographic, and even from a business perspective, yes, we build cars. But then there's technology, there's purchasing, there's logistics. It's very complex. Right. So in a setup like this, only when you step out of your day-to-day work and make yourself offer yourself to something else, to do something more, can you make yourself visible. So I am part of many cross-functional teams inside Renault today, working on initiatives. So that has helped me connect. It helps big on networking. Today, the fact that we're doing some work with Renault Spain, these are not my day-to-day. This is not my day job, right? But I like to do such activities, and I think that is what will make you visible. That will, so for example, there are skills that I don't put to use in my day job today, right? But whereas I can put this to use outside. So I think this is something which I tell everyone at home and at work, saying that unless you put your hand up, no one is going to come and appoint you for that role or take you for that job. So make yourself available, grab opportunities, and I think that is the way to make yourself visible.
Oh,
Because
very
if you're expecting your boss to talk about you, I don't think it's going to happen in current day and age.
okay. No, I like your point, being involved in different projects, in different area, even if it's not fully related to what you know, it's a way to learn new things and to develop new things, new skills, and to meet new people. So, yeah, okay, very interesting point. And even if at certain time you have to work to manage a huge workload, I imagine.
huge workload, and sometimes you would take up some things which in a lot of enthusiasm you would have taken it up, but then you don't really know what to do with it. So then you kind of go and gather more resources, and thereby connect with a lot more newer faces and get it done. Yes, so a lot of things have happened. I have taken up things which were way beyond what I can do, but that has also helped me to partner with a lot of newer people, because then you need additional staff or resources to get things done. So it works multiple ways, but it always ends well.
Great, thank you very much. Um, my last question is, what would be the two most important things that you would advise the program participant to be very careful about their career development? What could be your two most important advice for women at Renault?
Uh, I would I would talk about three things.
Perfect, you are the right
One,
again.
the first is uh, your growth is your responsibility, right? Your leaders, your managers can support you, but you have to have a vision of how far you want to go and how do you want to grow, right? So if you have that clarity in your mind, then you can go and ask for support, you can ask for resources. So I think the first is you have to take full ownership of your career, your growth. You cannot allow the other person to help. I mean, allow person to define it. You can define it, and for execution, you can take support. The second thing is, in this journey of growing, right? Uh, as I said in the past, don't shy away from opportunities. Even if you are partly ready, take it and you can learn as you get into that role, right? So you're never going to be 200% ready to do any job. So even if you have some shortcomings, never lose an opportunity. Be the first person to raise your hand in any room that you are in. The third is in this process, and this is more especially for women, is don't beat yourself to be perfect at all times. Right. So I think inherently many of us have this thing. Am I a good mother? Am I a good wife? Am I a good colleague? No, none of us are. The men never worry about it. So why beat ourselves with it? Right. So it's okay if we miss a school day, if it's okay if you're late for a particular milestone in a project, because no one is perfect. And so we don't have to beat ourselves to be perfect. So there could be good days and bad days. And that's why I say the concept of work-life balance does not exist. So learn to juggle, and your family over a period of time will understand the
Mhm.
juggle that you go through, and more than often will support you. So these are the three things that I would
I
want to
think it's
tell.
three wise advice, absolutely. Thank you very much. It was my last question. Do you want to add something to conclude?
The one thing is, when we talk of women, and I advocate a lot for women in leadership roles. So that's a passion, but we have to, as I said some time back, this journey is a very long drawn journey. I don't think this is going to end anywhere near in the near future. So we have to just face it. We can never wait for the ideal world and then say, okay, then we'll bring women into these roles, and so that's never going to happen. It's going to take a long time. So I think these kind of biases and prejudices, barriers are going to exist, and I think let's teach women to face it. While we are going to teach men to stop being biased, I think more important is to women to just go past it. Yes, there is a bias, but you have your skills and you know who you are, so you go and run the race yourself. So I think we have to help women to face these biases and not get bogged down by them. So that would be my concluding thought.
Thank you very much, Eva, for this very inspiring testimony. I'm sure that our participant will be very enthusiastic with your advice. Thank you very much. And it was really great for me to listen your experience and your point of view. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I hope this session helps your program.
Thank you. I'm sure of that.